Hey there! With Dragonflight coming to a close, I wanted to highlight the origins of the newest playable race, the Dracthyr. Strangely enough, their origin lore is kinda hidden in Dragonflight instead of being easily accessible. I know there's a lot of discussion as to if these guys even count as some kind of dragon, or what even are they, so to start off, let's begin with what a Dragonkin is in World of Warcraft. Dragonkin is effectively another way of saying dragonkind in this universe, and it covers everything from drakes like Alexstrasza, proto-drakes like a Ridicron, and even things like hornswogs, believe it or not, as anything that has evolved from draconic magic gains the blood of the dragon, as K-Straws tells you when you receive the tome on how to tame lesser dragonkin from him. The next part might get a bit convoluted, but try to stick with me. One type of dragonkin is known as a Drakonid, or as they are sometimes referred to, the Draconar. An example of a Drakonid in-game would be Syndrax, who we meet early on in the Dragonflight campaign. The original lore for Drakonids stated that they began as evolved mortals, where either due to large exposures of dragon magic, or just through great service to a Dragonflight, they would ascend whatever race they were to become a Drakonid of that flight. In Outland, we can actually see Dragonmaw ascended orcs who have become Netherwing Dragonids. In Kata's version of Blackrock Caverns, we can see Cora, the Herald of Twilight, creating Draconids herself. She does this by taking the draconic essence out of the body of an unalived Nether Dragon, mixing it with her own shadow magic, and then pumping it into the Twilight Zealots. After they reach about 100 stacks in this fight, they will transform into an evolved Twilight Zealot Draconid. As far as we know, there is no way to become unascended and revert back to the species that you were prior to the change. But we do know that Draconids can reproduce and lay eggs to create even more Draconid. Something that was rather clear from the get-go is that Dragonflight was going to add in new kinds of Dragonkin, as we were going to the ancestral homeland of the dragons. One such Dragonkin is the Tarasek. These guys use the male Worgen rigging, which is kind of funny because Dracthyr used the female Worgen rigging, and these guys look a little bit more like just Dracthyr without wings. However, their faces, in my opinion, have more of a bearded dragon vibe. These guys are adaptive hunters who wield elemental magics, so in WoW that means fire, water, wind, earth, decay, and spirit. The important part about the Tarasek is that according to the book, The Art of World of Warcraft Dragonflight, which came with the Dragonflight Collector's Edition, Tarasek were the first ever Draconid, who the aspects chose to uplift with the power of their respective flights. Of course, the Tarasek we see today are the descendants of those who chose to not be uplifted, which not only fits with older Draconid lore, but it also ties in nicely with lore from Dragonflight's book, The War of the Scaleborn, where the aspects bless their followers with the magic of their respective flights in order to create various dragons and drakes we have today. As for how that plays into the origin of the Dracthyr, we know that Deathwing felt like the Draconid were too slow and the dragon spawn were too weak. So he wanted to make some form of foot soldier who could harness the power of all of the aspects. In Aberrus, we find out that he mainly experimented on and augmented these first Draconid, until eventually the right mixture of arcane and essences from dragons of the five flights created the Dracthyr, with the first successor Dracthyr being called Rionthus, or, as you may know him, Experiment 328, which makes me wonder if part of the augmentation process involved somehow stripping back part of the aspectral uplifting that turned Tarasek into Draconids, simply because the Dracthyr have a similar stature to what they initially started as. It also might play a role into why, in the current lore, all characters such as Rakhthian seem to imply that Dracthyr visage is uniquely tied to the draconic elf look, and it's probably because of how they're created. Personally though, I think it's kind of crappy just in general for Blizzard to have hidden the crucial element of the Tarasek's involvement behind an art book with a collector's edition. But if you stuck around until the end of the video, consider giving me a like or subscribing for future content. But as always, thank you guys and have a good day.